The restaurant was stunning white linens, crystal chandeliers, a piano quietly playing classical music in the corner. The tables were filled with proud families, all gathered to celebrate the same milestone, their sons and daughters graduating from university. My son Jason sat at the center of our reserved table, wearing his black cap and gown, freshly gifted watch on his wrist, his girlfriend Danielle by his side. Her parents, both lawyers, were seated across from me. They smiled politely when I arrived but didn't make much eye contact after I introduced myself as a cleaner. "I didn't know your mother was coming," Danielle had whispered to Jason earlier. I heard it. He shrugged it off, glancing awkwardly at me before muttering, "Yeah," she insisted. I had insisted. After all, I was the one who'd washed dishes, scrubbed toilets, and cleaned houses every day since Jason was 10. Also, he could attend the very college we were now celebrating. I hadn't missed a single tuition payment, not one, but I had missed his football games, recitals, and school plays. All because I was working. And tonight, I came dressed in the nicest clothes I owned. Not designer, but neat, presentable. I wore a long blue dress and the same pair of black shoes I'd owned for years. Jason hadn't said much to me all evening. He thanked the waiter more warmly than he had thanked me for attending. Danielle, meanwhile, looked at me with mild amusement, like she couldn't quite believe someone like me had produced someone like him. Still, I kept smiling. I was just proud of him, or at least I thought I was. The night moved on with light conversation and the clinking of wine glasses. Jason's professors gave speeches from the stage. His classmates shared jokes. A slideshow played above us, showing baby pictures turning into capon gown portraits. Then, as dessert was being served, Danielle's father raised his glass and smiled at Jason. "Young man," he said, "it's rare these days to find someone so driven. Tell us what drives you. What made you work so hard?" Jason chuckled, shaking his head humbly. "To be honest, sir, I didn't want to end up like my mother." The table went silent. I blinked. Danielle giggled awkwardly. Her mother smiled tightly. Jason kept going, as if he hadn't just gutted me with one sentence. "She's a cleaner. I grew up surrounded by bleach and mop buckets. That smell still haunts me," he said, scrunching his nose. "I always told myself I'd never be that." Someone at the next table laughed. Danielle added, "But look at you now, about to intern at a top firm." "Exactly," Jason said, raising his glass. "To progress, to leaving the past behind." The past, he meant me. I stared at my son. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I stayed silent. I could feel eyes on me, some sympathetic, some amused, some indifferent. I reached for my water glass and took a slow sip. No one said a word to me. I had imagined this day so many times, me, clapping with tears in my eyes, watching Jason receive his diploma, hugging him proudly, being part of his joy instead. I felt like a stain on his perfect new life, unwanted, unseen, unworthy. But what Jason didn't know was that I hadn't come here just to eat. I had come prepared. I had spent weeks putting something together, something I originally planned to give him quietly, but now, things had changed. I pulled a small USB stick from my purse. "Excuse me?" I said calmly to the waiter. "May I ask the manager to play something on the projector?" He looked confused, but I handed him the USB and said softly, "It's important." After a brief pause, he nodded and walked toward the AV station. Jason frowned. "What's going on?" Danielle leaned in. "What's she doing, Mom?" Jason asked. "What's this about?" I didn't answer. I simply turned to face the screen as the lights dimmed slightly and the video began. The video opened with a clip of me in a janitor's uniform, mopping the floor of a school hallway, sweat on my brow, hands red from chemicals. Then a voiceover began my voice. "I'm Maria Carter. I raised my son Jason alone after his father died in a car accident when Jason was only 8. I had no savings, no college degree, and no help. But I had one goal, to make sure my son could choose any life he wanted." Clip after clip rolled. Me, folding laundry in strangers' homes, packing brown bags with lunch, placing them beside Jason's homework, working night shifts, sitting on buses at 5 a.m. One video showed me at the bursar's office, paying $12,500 in cash for a semester's tuition. Another showed me declining a surgery recommendation for my back because the recovery time would have kept me from working. Jason's voice appeared in a home video, aged around 10, greater than "My mom's a superhero. She works even when she's tired." I heard a few gasps around the room. The final shot was a clip of me sewing the hem of Jason's graduation robe by hand. The video faded to black dot. Silence. No one moved. Jason's face was pale. His jaw was clenched. Danielle looked stunned, her parents visibly uncomfortable. I stood up slowly and looked at him. "I gave you everything," I said. My voice was calm but firm. I missed birthdays, skipped meals, and wrecked my health for your future. I came here tonight to celebrate your success and you spat on me?" Jason's mouth opened but nothing came out. Danielle whispered, "Jason, you can be ashamed of me," I said, "but don't ever say I didn't earn this seat at your table." I turned and began walking toward the door. People at other tables stood up. One woman clapped quietly. A few nodded respectfully. Some bowed their heads, but I didn't look back. I didn't need applause. I didn't need pity. I had spent 22 years giving my son everything now. He would have to decide what that meant to him. Jason sat frozen, his fork halfway to his mouth, the echoes of his mother's voice still hanging in the air. Around him, the table was silent. Danielle looked between him and the blank screen where the video had just ended, her expression unreadable. He swallowed hard. "She didn't tell me she was going to do that," he muttered. Danielle's father cleared his throat. "No, but maybe she didn't need to." Jason glanced down at his plate, then up at the stares from nearby tables. Some were pitying, some disapproving. A few people whispered behind hands. It felt like the walls were closing in. Danielle shifted uncomfortably. "Why? Why didn't you ever tell me your mom did all that for you?" Jason didn't answer, because deep down he didn't know how. Because for years he'd told himself a story that made it easier to chase success, that his mother was embarrassing, that her job as a cleaner somehow diminished her worth, that what she gave him wasn't enough to make her valuable in public. He hadn't seen her as a woman who sacrificed everything. He'd seen her as a symbol of what he wanted to escape, but that video, it crushed the walls he'd built in his mind. He left the restaurant quietly, ignoring the few classmates who tried to ask what had just happened. He didn't even look at Danielle as she offered to come with him. "No," he said quietly. "I need to go alone." He called a cab, sat in silence the entire ride, and stared out the window, memories coming back like a flood. The nights he woke up and found his mom still scrubbing her hands at the sink, trying to get the bleach smell off. The time he asked for new sneakers and she cried silently because she couldn't afford them that month. The birthday cake she made him from scratch, with a candle that bent because she'd reused it. He remembered it all, now not as embarrassing details, but as evidence of love. She had never complained, not once. He'd arrived at her house just before midnight. The porch light was off, but her car was there. He rang the doorbell, no answer. He knocked. Still nothing. Then he sat down on the porch, step-like she had done for him when he was 5, and scraped his knee. He waited 10 minutes, 20. Finally, the door opened a crack. His mother stood there, in her robe, her eyes tired, her face unreadable. He began, but stopped. The words got caught in his throat. She said nothing. "I'm sorry, Mom." She looked at him for a long time. Then finally she opened the door wider. "I'm listening," she said. They sat at the kitchen table. Just like old times, the same table she used to help him with homework, where he'd eaten cereal before school every day, where she'd paid bills and counted coins for rent. Jason couldn't hold back his tears. "I don't know what's wrong with me," he said. "I became so obsessed with being someone, with impressing people. I didn't even realize I was erasing you." His mother didn't say anything, just waited. "I lied to myself," he continued. "I told myself that money made someone respectable, that your job was something to be ashamed of, but you gave me everything, every opportunity, every advantage. I just never looked close enough to see it." I watched the video 5 times. After I got home, and each time I hated myself more. She finally spoke, her voice calm. "I didn't make the video to hurt you. I made it to remember, to remind myself why I kept going." Jason stared down at his hands. "Can you ever forgive me?" She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Jason," she said, "I never stopped loving you, not for a moment. But forgiveness isn't about wiping the slate clean, it's about rebuilding, earning trust again." He nodded slowly. "I want to rebuild." She reached across the table and took his hand. "I know you do. That's why you're here?" The next few weeks were quiet but healing. Jason started coming around more often, bringing groceries, helping fix up things around the house. They cooked dinner together. Sometimes they didn't speak much, but the silence was warm, not bitter. He apologized again and again. In words and actions and time, Danielle reached out to sending flowers and a handwritten note. His mother responded kindly, but Jason knew it would take more than words to undo what had been done. One afternoon, Jason showed up with a black briefcase and handed his mother a folder. "What's this?" she asked. "A trust account," he said, "with your name on it. I'm transferring 20% of my salary each month to it. You'll never have to work again." She looked up at him. "Jason, it's not about guilt," he said. "It's about gratitude." She smiled. "You know I didn't do any of this for money?" "I know. That's exactly why you deserve it. A few months later, Jason hosted a dinner of his own, this time in a smaller venue, with fewer people. No photographers, no expensive wine, just friends, a few mentors, and his mother at the head of the table. When it was his turn to speak, he stood with a trembling hand and looked straight at her. "I want to say something tonight," he began, "that I should have said at my graduation." Everyone quieted. "I owe everything I am to my mother. She gave me more than just an education. She gave me character, discipline, humility, and love. The kind of love that wakes up at 4 a.m. to clean someone else's mess so her son doesn't grow up stuck in someone else's shadow." He paused, his voice cracking. "I was ashamed of her once. I thought success meant money,